Hey everyone, it's Mike. Going to give you a quick introduction to our new US Autocure efficiency calculator tool. I think it's a wonderful tool that Mark has spent a little bit of time developing. It really helps us communicate the story of US Autocure. The way that I would view that this tool be used is this would be the type of thing that you as a rep, if you identify a potential opportunity for Autocure, you could reach out to me. We can run through some general assumptions, gain a little bit of knowledge of what we know about the shop's numbers, plug this in and see how well it looks before we ever engage with the shop owner. It's a great opportunity for us to do a little bit of fact finding quietly and before we determine whether or not this is a lead that is worth engaging. So I want you guys to know that it's meant to be a tool to help us not only evaluate leads, but also to help us educate and tell the story of the value of US Autocure. So with that, let's bring the calculator up. All right. So what you're looking at here is our US Autocure estimated efficiency calculator. You might have heard us refer to this as an ROI calculator. We got to be a little bit careful about that term ROI calculator simply because it implies a particular return on their investment. And there's just too many variables in a given shop for me to guarantee any type of return. However, we can estimate the impact that a US Autocure machine will have in your shop without making an actual hard commitment in terms of the return on investment that an owner may receive. That said, there are three main areas that we focus in for the sake of this demonstration and for the sake of these conversations. The first of which is your estimated savings in terms of utilities. And by utilities, I mean primarily natural gas. There will be a reduction in natural gas consumption in a post-Autocure environment over the pre-Autocure environment. The second area that we focus in on is your ability to capitalize on demand. Every shop has a certain production capacity that they're limited. They can't produce any more units than that or complete any more ROs in a given period of time. However, if with an Autocure machine, we can effectively raise that capacity, it allows that shop to take advantage of that demand that they have not been able to turn into profits in the past. The other area where we do focus in is on labor efficiency. We'll talk a little bit about what this means in terms of both hours and dollars and some of the flexibility that it gives shops. With that in mind, let's run through this so that I can keep this demo relatively brief. Anytime you need to find this, you'll go to usautocure.com/calculator. This is not yet a publicly facing link because I want us to use this tool ourselves and get real comfortable with it, work out any of the bugs or address any of the things we think we need to before we would make that available for everybody to be plugging numbers in. The other thing I want to make sure that I stress is that these are the shop's numbers. These aren't numbers that we're going to tell them they can do. These are the numbers that they're going to tell us reflects their current situation and what they believe they could do. I want them to own the numbers because we can set this very conservative and it still looks really good. So if a shop thinks it looks too good, for example, well, we can ask them if they want to be a little bit more conservative in their estimates, and we can bring it down to an area that they're comfortable with. But I'm very confident that in all the areas along the spectrum, this math works out really, really well. First, let's take a look at utilities. Shop that we are dealing with today has an average monthly natural gas bill of $1,500. We know that we can save them a considerable portion of that by utilizing the Autocure system over convection curing. However, I also know that that's not the only consumer of natural gas within the shop. Now, that being said, it's difficult in some cases for us to pinpoint the amount of gas that is being consumed specifically by the booth. That being said, I always estimate my savings on natural gas very conservatively. This number can be much higher, particularly if we can isolate the amount of gas used by that particular spray booth. But in general, you can use 15 to 20% and you're going to be pretty safe across the board. If we use 20% on a $1,500 monthly expense, we yield the shop owner $3,600 in savings on his utilities annually. That doesn't seem like a lot of money, but keep in mind, you're paying your utilities out of money you've already earned. And so I would much rather have the shop owner keep $3,600 than to give it back to their local utility company. The other area where we see gains is in your production. This particular shop that we're dealing with has a $3,500 average RO. That's their severity. they're running about 45% gross margin. And these are real numbers that we pulled from a shop that has recently installed an Autocure machine. They are currently running 200 jobs per month. That is their capacity, and they are maxed out. They can produce no more than that, given their current capacity. With an Autocure machine, we've allowed them to increase their capacity. They could, given their current booth configurations and painters, they could double this. But I'm not going to promise that because I don't know what their demand really looks like, even though the shop tells us they have demand to do twice what they're doing. I'm going to tell them if we can only add 1 unit a day every month, that's approximately 25 ROs that you're going to do that you weren't able to do before. If you add 25 new ROs to the 200 you're already doing at a $3,500 average RO and a 45% gross margin, at the end of the year, you will have yielded $472,500 in additional gross profit. And this is associated with these additional units over the course of a year. So you can see that based on really just a modest realization of unrecognized or uncapitalized demand, you just got to add a few units and the payback starts to look really, really good. If we take a look at these two numbers combined, it's $476,100. If I switch that to monthly, you'll see that's almost $40,000 a month between savings and gains in a post-Autocure environment that we can estimate based on the information we have from the shop. Now, if you're looking at an average lease payment of maybe $4,000 to $5,000, it's a pretty good proposition at this point. If I can go to a shop owner and say, if you give me $4,000 a month, I'll give you $40,000 a month back. And it's only predicated on you going up a unit a day at your current RO and your current margin. And this is what you have the potential to gain. And these are pretty conservative estimates. The gross margin might fluctuate a little bit. Of course, these numbers are highly variable, and this number is going to change considerably based on your market. But the math still is very, very, very simple to do and easy to see the return when you put it in black and white. Now, the other area that we talk about is in labor efficiency. Now, if I have one employee, one painter working on these units, and if I save that employee 10 minutes per unit, just 10 minutes, and I know we'll save more than that. That's an incredibly conservative estimate as well. And that painter makes $40 an hour, which is not at all unusual. Each month, we will have gained you the equivalent of 1 full working week. Now, if you think about the impact that has, think about it financially. The MSO that you're competing with down the street, they have 4 weeks in a month and that they can bill and earn. Somehow in the same 4-week calendar, I found a way to get a shop 5 weeks of billing because we've gained them an additional 5 days that they can produce that the shop down the street can't in the same calendar month period. That is a tremendous advantage when used correctly in the market. Now, the labor savings in dollars associated with that per month is $1,500. There's a couple things this allows you to do. One is this gives you a little bit of room now to start playing with your wages. If you upped this by $1, which for the sake of this argument, we have to lower it by $1 because what we're going to do is we're going to take $1 out of our profits and put it back in the employee's hands. So if I take that down here, boom, all it does is reduce me by a couple $100, and I've given that employee that extra $1 an hour. So it gives me some flexibility in terms of my labor. The other thing it does is because I've freed up some work time, I could take these employees and I could allow them to do non-revenue generating activities like processing totals, things like that normally I'm paying them to do anyway, but this is bonus time. This is time I've freed up. So to have them do that in time that I've somehow gained, it's a tremendous advantage for a shop over the shop down the street. This is really in a nutshell how the calculator works. You can come down to here, click this little button if you want to bring it up into full screen, and it'll bring it into full screen mode for you, which is great. You can see everything a little easier. This also ties in with the new feature on our US Autocure website. We click the home button. From anywhere on the site, you'll see Get Started, or there's a button down here that says Get Started that is on every page and stays on every page. So if I move up and down, You can see the button stays where it's at. I click get started, and it brings up a page that tells us very simply how we want to approach this. The first thing I want to do is have Pat look at the coatings that they're using. What paint are they shooting? We know that pretty much every one of the coatings our auto body shops are using is going to respond well to IR, but it never hurts to get Pat's sign off on that ahead of time. It may tell us some things, and it may help us anticipate some things. ROI analysis, I need to change this. I'll change it to efficiency. But that's the calculator I just showed you. We put in some very simple basic numbers to get an idea of what we think the ROI might look like. And last but not least is the process analysis. That's when we involve our engineer, Mickey Meyer. And he'll look at the current size of the booth, configuration of the booth, layout of the shop, and try and determine the nature of the system that's going to work best for that particular application. I put on here, because I mean it, there's no cost associated with these steps. We don't share this information with anyone. We can do them very quickly, or we can take as much time as the prospect is comfortable with. We do believe in this technology. I know gas catalytic medium wave IR works. I just need to make sure that it works for you, and that the dollar proposition is there to make it make sense for everyone. We don't want to sell a piece of equipment that doesn't make sense. For most people, it's going to. You can clearly see that by the math. I like to let folks know these steps can all be done without the customer ever being engaged. If you think you have an opportunity, we can talk about the products that they use without them really knowing. We can actually even pencil out a few numbers based on some expectations and some things that we know to see how that looks. And chances are we know a little bit about their processes that we can determine whether or not Autocure will fit for their particular application. We can do all of this between just us. The customer never has to know. But if these things start to look really good, particularly as we get through step 2, then it makes a lot of sense for us to go to the customer and say, hey, we've got some technology that we just kind of want to introduce you to. We've already looked through your list of coatings, and we know they're going to respond really, really well to infrared. And I've already done some very basic financial calculations that I'd like to share with you that shows that this can be a moneymaker for you. If you can get to that conversation, hey, if we get to that conversation 10 times and close 2 or 3 of them, that's a really, really, really good rate, and we'll take it. Wonderful tool. I'm always happy to go through it with you directly anytime you want. We can, if you've got a prospect, we can run through a few numbers together very quietly before we engage them. Just really appreciate the opportunity. And I want to end this by saying thank you again. The number of leads and the number of times that we've been able to engage in this 3-step conversation has gone up dramatically over the last 90 days. And we really, really, really appreciate those opportunities. Hey, thanks, everyone. Really appreciate your support. Appreciate your time listening today, and happy selling.